it to just come into the audio portion. So I think that we've got everybody on that's probably going to be on, at least for the beginning part. This is Laura Bauer, National Program Director for Operation Family Caregiver, and I appreciate you taking the time to be on this call today. I'm going to give you just a brief overview of what we'll be doing on the call. If you have to get off, don't worry, everything is being recorded. You'll be able to come back at a later date. I will be sending out some materials immediately after the call. It'll go out to everybody, all the coaches and supervisors, and it will contain the link of how you can go back in and view this webinar. But I do want to welcome our special guest, who is Tanya Hess, and she is the Director of Training for Coaching into Care. I'll let her tell you a little bit more about herself, but I did want to tell you that we thought it was important that everybody understand what this program is, because I know from talking to the coaches out in the field that a lot of the caregivers you're working with, their number one complaint is they cannot get their loved one into care, or their soldier is refusing to go to counseling, or he won't go to the VA, or things of that nature. And while the caregiver can't force another person to do anything, and it can't be a goal of theirs to make somebody do anything, this program can actually help the caregiver and give them some tools so that maybe they can convince their loved one to get into care. So I think it's going to be something that you'll find very valuable in working with the families that you're working with. So that being said, I want to turn it over to you, Tanya, and you just take it from there.
Hi, thank you. I'm very happy to be here, and I appreciate both the invitation and that so many people were able to set aside time to join us. So I'm a psychologist. My name is Dr. Tanya Hess. Feel free to call me Tanya. And I work for the VA hospital and have worked with this project since we were doing the planning stages of getting the line up and off the ground. So what I'm going to do is just kind of talk you through the project, what we do, how the program works, and then open it to questions from you guys. Can everybody hear me okay, I guess, before I go too far?
And if you just type it down there, I have everyone else muted, so you can't say if you can't hear her, but
okay.
Yeah, just type. I see Kirby is saying yes.
Okay, so I'll take that as a yes. Great. So let's see, I have the slides. So coaching into care is for when a veteran you know needs help. So the first slide is going to be probably stuff that you guys already know since you've doing some work in this area. But there are now more than 2 million veterans from the War of Iraq and Afghanistan. And we have that to the additional 7 million veterans from Vietnam. We come up with a number of close to 45% of our population of veterans who have need for some kind of treatment in mental health, either for post-traumatic stress, depression, mild brain injury. And what we found is that there's about 40% of the Iraq and Afghanistan veterans who never enrolled when they came back, which shows us that there's a large population that potentially has some issues that they might need help with, but aren't already in care with the VA. And the project is based on the idea that frequently the family members, loved ones, we actually extend it to friends, clergy, anybody who's concerned about a veteran, are often in a position to see that there's a need, sometimes even before the veteran either sees it or certainly is ready to reach out and ask for help. And the idea was that if we could make it a little bit easier for these supporting players to get some information about how to help, how the VA works, how to get somebody into care, then that could help kind of pave the way and make it easier for the veteran themselves to get into care. So traditionally the VA for years had the model of kind of, you call and say the veteran needs help. They say that's great, have the veteran call. Clearly that's an oversimplification, but the idea here was that if we can educate all the people around the veteran, that pathway will become a little more clear and a little easier to access. So what we are, Coaching into Care, is a national call center. We're all VA employees. And we help families and friends talk to veterans about reaching out for mental health care. We do that by, let me go back to that slide, offering a variety of things that we'll go over later in detail, but everything from education about mental health care systems, about the VA system itself, talking about symptoms that people are seeing. We don't do any diagnosis because we don't talk to the veteran, and we actually don't access the veteran's records at all because it's not the veteran contacting us, it's the family. We simply use information that we know about mental health in general to help guide them on what to look for and educate them on the kind of things that might be going on and the kind of services that might match up. And then if someone needs a little bit more than that, we will have them work with one of our coaches about how to actually have the conversation. So basic communication skills, problem-solving skills. So one of the things we base this on, and I know Laura mentioned in the beginning, you're not going to make someone go. We're not going to drag somebody in or go and pick them up. We're just trying to take away some of the stumbling blocks, take away some of the tension in the family. And what we find is veterans are very self-reliant. It's one of the things that makes them great service members. It's a strength, but when it comes time to ask for help, it can be very hard. And as I said, the family members often will see this and be willing to ask for help sooner. So this slide I've already said. What I have here, we're not going to listen to these today, but if you make these slides, I assume you're going to make these slides available later to them?
Yes.
Each of these is a link to a YouTube clip. They're about 1 minute each, and they're little scenarios that talk about us and kind of a typical family, if you will. And there isn't really a true typical family. We'll go over that. But they're just little vignettes that you certainly can share with people that talk about what we do. Who are we here to help? Family, friends, coworkers, clergy, anybody who's worried about a veteran, where the veteran is not in mental health care or maybe was in mental health care a while ago and dropped out and is hesitant to return. So obviously if we have a veteran calling saying, I want mental health care, we're just going to get them connected. If we have someone who is already being seen regularly in treatment, we're going to encourage the family and the person to work with the treatment team. But it's specifically when someone's not in active treatment and the family is really concerned that they might need that, that's when we tend to get more involved and work with the family around what the options are. So here's some kind of typical scenarios. We might have somebody who's the wife of a veteran from the Iraq War call in and say that the husband hasn't been the same since the 3 tours. We might have a friend of a Vietnam veteran who noticed that when the veteran recently retired, started becoming more and more withdrawn, perhaps increased drinking. Those are some standard ones that we might get. But we actually have found, a little aside, when we started we were OEF focused, so Iraq, Afghanistan focused, and we found that close to half our callers were prior eras, meaning that that we had some Vietnam veterans who had been doing okay until the last child moved out and the wife or husband finally said, that's it, I can't take this anymore. And okay, I mean they were kind of getting by. And then things really started to fall apart, or even somebody from the Gulf War who maybe didn't come in and has kind of been struggling in silence for a good number of years. So we quickly expanded our mission that we're not going to turn anybody away. If we've got somebody calling in about a veteran, it doesn't matter what era, we're going to try and help them. So how do we actually do that? Our service is a national line. So we have one number. We actually have 3 sites, but we work together as one unit, and the phone can get routed to any of them. It helps us cover evening hours by having a West Coast site. We're open 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Friday. That's Eastern Time. We are a free service. We're a confidential service. We do not put any records in any notes in the veterans' records. We don't access the veterans' records. We keep our own separate database just so that we can follow up with callers, which actually is one of the key things that makes us more of a clinical service, is that when someone calls us, we're going to touch back with them in a few days, a week, a few weeks, whatever is most helpful for them, to find out if the resource was useful, find out if what they tried out with the veteran worked, and kind of tweak it with them. So what we can provide, information about mental health symptoms and what to look for, talk with them about how to access and work with VA and community resources, and then how to have that conversation. One thing people always want is that, what's the magic word? If I say this word, the veteran everything will turn around and come in. And so sometimes it's actually talking with them about the process that it's going to take to try and get someone help and to try and give them enough space and information to accept the help. Who's on our team? Our team is made up loosely of responders and coaches. I say loosely because there's a few people who do both. But generally our responders are techs, psych techs who have been trained extensively by us, have a psychology background, and will take the calls, assess for crises. We have a partnership with the crisis line so that if there is a crisis, we're going to get them over to that line right away. We also have partnerships with Caregiver Support Line, Vet Center Call Center, a number of other key lines. In fact, we have a partnership with you guys at the Operation Family Caregiver. So we will work to kind of assess and make sure that they're at the right place before we get started. And then get some more information to them, find out what's going on, what they need help with, and then schedule a time to follow up and see how they're doing. If it's somebody who needs a little bit more along the communication skills, might need, not know where to start, or they've tried and it's led to fights or withdrawal, that's when we're more likely to get one of our psychologists or social workers involved. And they'll also work with someone a number of times. Standard would probably be once a week, but in the beginning it would kind of vary. So, maybe somebody wants a few more weeks to follow up on things, that's fine. And it's not therapy, but it's not therapy and it's not case management, but it's coaching. It's kind of helping them think of options, prioritize what they want to try to do first, troubleshoot with them, maybe do some role playing, and then let them practice what they might want to say, and then following up with them later to see how that went and where things can be changed for the next try, if there needs to be a next try. I'm going to take a breath and see if there's any questions so far on the stuff I've already covered.
And just raise your hand or type the question in if you have a question.
Can you hear me, Laura? This is Lorie.
Yes.
So while they're typing in their questions, I think, Tanya, one of the things that I was really amazed and impressed by when I talked to Dr. Sayers, your director, is that there is a large percentage of your clients, the caregivers that you're working with, that you work with for an extended period of time, which I think is a great source of support. And I always try when I go out and talk to people to let them know that, coaching into care, it's not just, call one time and that's it. It's really a relationship that you're building and a source of support for the caregiver regarding that very specific issue of how to get their veteran into care. And, that's something that, I think for Operation Family Caregiver is key because, we work with the caregivers to take care of themselves, and they're often so focused on taking care of their veteran that this is an opportunity for them to get support on that specific problem outside of Operation Family Caregiver.
That's right, and I'm sorry I neglected to introduce you, Lorie. Some of the folks that are on today have not met Lorie Van Tilburg. She's the Executive Director of Southern Caregiver Resource Center and houses the OFC program in San Diego and in Los Angeles. And so Lorie's going to also be on just talking about just what she just did, how this has got application out in the field, and when you're working with families, how this can be of benefit to offer it to them. Does anybody else have any questions at this time? I don't see any hands raised, so whenever you're ready to start back, Tanya.
You call Comcast or Verizon or something, and
Tanya, are you there now?
I am. Was I on mute?
Okay. Sorry, I didn't know I had put you on mute. So.
Okay. Do I have it back? Okay, there I go. I see
Sorry
speaking.
about that.
So I was going to say, just like Lorie said, it actually is something we have to talk with our responders about when they first join us, is that one of the things they have to get across to callers is that they're the person that will be working with them, because people are so used to calling, call lines, whether it's a crisis line or domestic violence line, or even Comcast and Verizon. You call them and you get somebody new every time. And so we work hard to let people know that we'll actually be the person who keeps working with them. They don't have to tell their story over again. And that we will plan for them to answer when we call back, because we want to know how things went. We probably have a good number that come in right around 3 calls, and another big number is probably around 6. But we do have some people who will extend. Often I won't do every single week, because I really don't want them, if they need therapy and weekly support, I really want to get somebody connected to somebody near them who can do that more intensive therapy and will be on the ground with them in case something goes wrong. But at the same time, things didn't get this way overnight, so we understand that one call with us may not be enough for them to get things straightened back out or get someone to reach out for help. So we're going to, I guess for me, my way is I often will meet with somebody weekly for the first, again, it depends on the issue, but first, month or so, and then, talk with them about what would be helpful. Would it be helpful this meet in 2 weeks to give you some more time to try some things? But yeah, we do follow them as long as they need us to help get the person into care. We actually do have some people that will drop off also, and they'll say, hey, nothing's really happening right now, or he or she's going to move out of state for a summer, and then they'll get back with us 6 months later and say, something happened. I think we're ready to go now. Let's start this up again, and we're happy to work with them. So what can people expect? So the first call, a responder is going to ask them questions. Who they are, what they'd like help with, what kind of things have been going on. They're going to listen for any kind of crisis that needs to be attended to. They're going to try and provide some resource information, something as basic as, do you know where your local VA is? Are you enrolled? To stuff that's more more psychiatric or psychologically oriented, like information about PTSD or TBI. They may make some basic suggestions about communication and ask the person what they've tried and how it's gone. And then they'll schedule a time to follow up with them. And again, depending on the case, it may be the next day, it may be a week later. But they'll set up a time and they'll follow up and see, how were those resources? Were they helpful? Did you get through when you called somebody? What did you find out? And that may go on actually for a few calls. And it's at the point when someone says, okay, I know where to go and what to do, but when I talk to the veteran, it's just not, we're not getting anywhere. That's when we'll have a coach work with them and talk with them about the actual communication process and working on, again, empowering. So it's very much an empowerment model. It's not let's drag the veteran along with you. It's let's not make the veteran feel cornered, but really help them feel like they have a choice and that they have options. And I mentioned before, it's not therapy, so it's very problem-focused. And it does also, however, include getting the caller support. There's frequently times when we'll refer to caregiver support, to you guys, to NAMI, maybe to some other kind of support group in the community to help them get connected to some local people where they can get additional support for themselves and talk with them a bit about self-care. which I believe from what I know of you guys is something that's very much a focus of what you do also. So another example caller may be the mother of an Army vet where the son served in Iraq and, came back. Things were okay for a little while, but then she noticed that the drinking had increased. Maybe there's a suicide attempt in the past month or so, arrested for some disorderly conduct, and so then we might work with them to get connected and become aware of the different VA services. So you might make sure they know about the Veterans Justice Outreach, be certain that they're aware of the Suicide Prevention Coordinator and the Veterans Crisis Line, other emergency services, and then start to talk with her about how interactions go with her and him. Has she ever brought this up? Did she ever ask him if he'd like help? Some fairly basic questions from a professional's point of view, but some stuff that we actually have people who'll say, you mean like actually say, are you suicidal? Well, have you been wondering it? Oh yeah, I think about it all the time. Well, maybe it's okay just to ask them. It's probably not going to give them that idea, and kind of talk that through with them. What would they want to ask? So that would be kind of an example of what we do. We are unique in the VA in that we work directly with family members and friends. Kind of the plus side of not having access to the individual records is not having the stress of having to not tell something that you can't tell. So we just simply meet them where they're at with the information they provide us, and talk to them about what they're seeing and what options they might want to bring up with a veteran. We're phone-based, so we can cover the nation easily just by people picking up the phone. There's no need to travel. And then we work on connecting them to other lines if those are the lines that they should be working with. Then we do occasionally. We have a pretty good relationship with both of those lines as well as with a number of other VA lines and some non-VA lines. So our goal is always to get the person advocating for themselves, kind of as a model of what they want the veteran to do, and not taking over and doing it for the caller. So we don't do case management and that we're going to pick up a phone and run interference. But we'll say, well, what problem did you have when you called? What did you say? What did they say? Does the person you're working with who gave you the resource that didn't work, did you ever tell them that resource was a dead number? And no. Well, why don't we call them back and let them know that and see what else they can come up with you. So kind of helping them think outside the box and keep going in much the way that we want them to do with the veteran. Our volume has been increasing. In the very beginning, that first year, we were just a regional project. So we didn't have a national reach until halfway through 2011. Since then, we've just continued to increase. So here we are at the part of what can you guys do and how do we work together. You certainly can make referrals. We are here, as I said, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Friday Eastern Time. The idea was that we would cover 8 a.m. Eastern through 5 p.m. West Coast. And we have one number. It's toll-free. After hours, it goes to a voicemail that we return the next business day. We do encourage warm transferring. So that means instead of just giving somebody our number, calling with them to make the introduction. The advantage to that is when you know that they've gotten to us. Two, you're able to talk with us a little bit about what it is that you've already recommended and help them talk about what it is that they want. You get to model kind of that introduction for them. Certainly, though, we're happy for you to give out our number. We know there's many times when we offer to make warm transfers and the person has just had enough for that day and they say, no, we'll call them tomorrow and follow up with you. So that's fine too. After hours, you can email us at coachingintocare@va.gov. After the call, I believe Laura will send around a template that we made up just to kind of guide you in what information we need to have. If you can't access the template, we're still going to accept an email with that address. But that just kind of gives you a guideline of the kind of pieces we need, like the person who you want us to call and their phone number, those kind of things. and make sure that they're willing to get a call from us. What else? So that's the main ways to get in touch with us. We do have website, Twitter. I think I'm going to get to that in a second. Let's see. Yeah, here we go. So the other ways, one way is directly sending us people and working with us on cases. Another way is to let other people know about us. If you guys are, I don't know if you guys do outreach events, but if you ever find yourself in the situation where you're doing an outreach kind of event where you think that there'd be family members or friends of veterans who would want to know about our project, by all means let us know. We'll send you brochures, business cards, all kinds of materials, posters. If you want them around your offices, let us know. And I'll have a number at the end for you for that, to a request line for that. Actually, I think I do. If I don't, I'll tell it to you. But it's cic.materials@va.gov, and that's the number to request any brochures or pamphlets that you need. We're also on the web. We're on Facebook, so like us. We're on Twitter. Follow us. We have a blog, which I should get the link in there. I'll make a point of sending that. But we have a blog that comes out quarterly that talks about what we do, and we would be happy for as many people to be on that as possible. Sorry, that was a newsletter. The newsletter has a blog in it, so that's different. But you can share information about us on a blog. Any of these ways we're just kind of sharing, getting our name out, and letting more people know that we're here and that we're happy to work with you guys. Here's some of the posters and slides and stuff. And then, yeah, this last section is for you guys to ask me questions. Here's our phone number, our email address, our website, and then again it is cic.materials@va.gov to get any materials sent out to you. So with that, I open it to any questions you guys might have.
And don't be shy to ask questions. This is your opportunity to get an answer from the expert on this. I'm going to go ahead and unmute everybody so that you don't have to raise your hand even. You can just talk and ask a question.
The conference has been unmuted.
Okay.
I have a question. This is Alvin with the Lorie Project. Can you hear me? Oh, I hear music in the background.
I can hear you faintly, but I do hear the music too.
How often do you run into problems where you have a veteran that lives quite a few distance away from the VA?
It happens. Yeah, well, is there more to the question?
Yes. I mean, and to the point where that's one of the barriers to them going. It's like, wow, it's so far, and them trying to get time to get off from work or just to get there because of the distance.
Right. Yeah, it's a good question because certainly working nationally, we do get that. We get people who say, well, my nearest VA is 3 hours away. I can't get him there after work or in the middle of the day. Or her. And so those are times when we try and think creatively with the person and realize that that's a reality. And you know what? I might not go to weekly therapy if it was 3 hours away also. So what we'll do is we'll try and brainstorm. We're VA employees. Our mission, is to get people to come into the VA, but our real mission is to help veterans. So if getting into the VA Medical Center isn't what's going to work for them, then we're going to try and help them brainstorm and find out what other options they have. Do they have a vet center near them or a CBOC, a community-based outpatient clinic? If they don't have any VA services, are they aware of the VA Choice program, Veterans Choice, which reimburses for treatment outside the VA if you're more than, I believe it's 40 or 50 miles away from the VA. So we'll try and make sure that they, if that doesn't work for them, do they have a family doctor that they like who might recommend somebody in their area? Or is there a community mental health center in their area? So, we kind of start with the VA as the resource, but as we can, we'll, help them extend and think about what other options they have.
Okay. Yeah, I like the idea of the VA. Just to let you know, I'm primarily rural county, so the caregiver coach, gets anywhere, but the VA choice, I find definitely a great option. So thanks for the reminder about that.
Oh, certainly. You broke up a little bit, but I heard you say the VA choice would be a good option in those kind of situations.
Right. I was just saying that, basically saying thank you for the reminder, because a lot of times, we get so caught up and then we forget about the other options the veteran may have. So the VA choice is definitely a great option. So thanks for the reminder.
Oh, certainly.
And I did go in and mute everybody again because the background noise was a little distracting. But if anybody else has a question, please use the thing where you raise your hand or either type in the bottom that you have a question and I'll unmute you.
Yeah. And while we're looking for more questions, that's one of the things we do here is we actually do supervision in groups here, both peer supervision as well as more formal supervision. Just because I've been very much an advocate of keeping the peer supervision, because people who do this all day, start to have the favorites that they recommend. But when we can kind of present in front of each other, it's like, oh, what about such and such? That might help in this case. And so really sharing those kind of resources, because there's so many out there, and they change. And so introducing new ones to each other. We have guest speakers come to our team meetings just so that we learn about new things. I think Lorie and Lorie, you both have talked to our team at different times. Yeah.
That's right. And I wanted to, Lorie, I wanted you to weigh in again and talk a little bit more about the benefits to us doing cross referrals into each other's programs.
Okay, so is this time for me to go into my part of the program?
Yes.
Okay, so thanks again, Tanya, for talking about coaching into care, because I think it's a perfect example of a partnership that was formed through a contact with Dr. Sayers, your director. And when I get more into my talk, I can go more specifically about how that actually happened, because that's sort of a model that I think we can all use in developing partnerships, across the OFC sites across the country. And again, Laura asked me to talk about my experience in developing partnerships and cross-promotion through outreach, really to get, caregivers for our OFC program and to help promote the services that are available across the board in the community of the other organizations. And so, not knowing your organization, some of you may be doing this already, so that's great. And if not, then food for thought, and especially for those that, maybe the newer sites, maybe you can look at some of these strategies that I have. And, outreach I think sounds simple, and it's, you just go out and you talk to people, but I really have a strategy behind everything that I have done in terms of outreach to try to get, clients for Operation Family Caregiver and to promote the other programs in the community. And so I think before I go into more details about that, I want you all to think about, as I go through, my talk, about the organization that your OFC site resides in, because I think that makes a real difference as to what may be possible in terms of outreach and partnerships. And, the key to success of OFC across the country, really does rely heavily on the organizational support that is given to your project. And here, I'm the executive director, and I'm very passionate about OFC, and I'm very committed organizationally to the success of the program. And with that comes a great amount of support from the other programs and staff that I have at my larger nonprofit. And so it's really looking at the organization that you're residing in and what support do you have. And, many of you may already have great relationships with management in your organization, but it's kind of a strange way to look at it. But I want you to look at, what type of partnership do you have with your host agency? And, are you able to get the support that you need to do outreach, to do education events, to help them with these partnerships that you're wanting to form so that you can get clients into the Operation Family Caregiver program? And so it's looking at, partnerships within your organization and that's sort of internal partnerships so that you're getting maybe referrals if you're hosted in an agency that has, connections to veterans and family caregivers. And it's also then external partnerships. And so, when I conclude, I'll kind of circle back to how you work organizationally within your own host agency. And so I think, moving forward, because I know that I don't have a lot of time, I just want to tell you a little bit about, my experience and what's worked for me. And so I don't have slides because this is really just, my own strategy for myself, and it's worked very well, for here in San Diego, and then most recently in Los Angeles, where in the last 6 months I've really been able to develop real good partnerships and contacts, and referrals are flowing in. And I didn't have any relationships in LA prior to 6 months ago. And so, I think that, what I've been doing I've seen to be pretty effective. So first, the way I start out is I really keep in mind two very simple goals that drive all of my activities. And the larger goal is to ensure that caregivers know about the help and support that is available to make it easy to access programs across the board. So I'm not just promoting Operation Family Caregiver, I'm promoting everything that's out there in the community to help support caregivers. And then the second goal is really crucial, is to get referrals to Operation Family Caregiver, because OFC is a fantastic program, but without clients, we'll never succeed, and, we won't be a viable program, and funders won't want to sustain the funding stream. And so it's really crucial that outreach is a key component to get those clients in. And so everything I do, like I said, is I have a strategy, and it's to reach those goals, and that drives the agenda of how I would do my outreach. And I've classified it in 3 categories, or 3 touch points, as I call it, and that's really how do you reach the caregivers. And first is, the larger picture of, the veteran and military service providers and the general public. And, that category is sort of for general branding, getting your program vetted in the community, and visibility. Next is, veteran and military providers that directly work with caregivers, not just veterans, but caregivers. They're actually having face-to-face contact, and that's more targeted, more strategic partnerships are built in that category. And then the final category that I think we need to, work on is how do you get that face-to-face contact with the actual caregiver, because it sort of goes in, levels of success, and the most successful is when I can directly touch the family caregiver, or the mom or the dad, or the friend or the neighbor that's providing that care. And so how do you go about, doing that? And so one of the things that I did here, and that's something that, maybe some of the sites can do if organizationally, that's supported, is to set up an advisory committee that meets quarterly of all the military and veteran providers in your region. And I don't do that for all programs that I have, at Southern Caregiver Resource Center, but for this program, because it's so difficult to reach that population and also to get, more visibility and vetting within that community, I have an advisory committee that, that group comes together, and then from that group I identify, okay, well, who are members within that advisory committee that I need to explore more on how to set up partnerships. And the partnerships, would be more formal partnerships where, I might set up a MOU with them to solidify the referral process back and forth to cross-promote, which is something that we did with Coaching into Care, so that we have, an MOU. They have a referral form that we send to them, and they have a referral form that, they send to us. I've done it with other programs as well, Soldiers Project, 211, which I'm not sure all of you have well-developed 211 programs, but Operation Mend, Psych Armor Institute. And, when I'm putting together, these partnerships, one of the things that I do that's key, because I view RCI as the primary partner, and how to support RCI and the whole OFC network is I'm not just looking at setting up partnerships for San Diego or LA. I'm looking at how can I set up partnerships for all of the OFC sites that are going to be of benefit. And so when I set up these partnerships, I always link Laura into that, and that's how, it worked with, Coaching into Care. And, very quickly how that worked is I didn't know a lot about Coaching into Care, and I got the name, you have to talk Coaching into Care, and I called, Dr. Sayers, and I thought I was calling some number, and, he was in San Diego. Well, it turns out, it was back on the East Coast, but we had a great conversation. I talked to him, he talked to me, we found out where, our interests lie. He came to the conference at RCI last year and presented on a panel with myself and Roberto Velasquez. And then, we set up a formal MOU. Their logo's on our website. We've done a training for them. Obviously, Tanya did the training for us. And, it took a long, about a year process to do all of that. But, that's really how these relationships, work. You start and then you just continue to build and build and build. And, it does take time. And then when you're looking at, face-to-face, and how do you reach, caregivers directly? Because for me, when I can talk directly to a caregiver, that's when I've been the most successful, hooking them in. And so I try to find out, where are these caregivers? And sometimes that takes a lot of work because, I've joked with some of the caregivers that they're this underground network. And one of the ways that's been real successful that, I suggest some of the coaches try to do is to work with your Dole Fellows in your community, because the 2 Dole Fellows that I've worked with here, I now have very close personal relationships with. They have been clients of Operation Family Caregiver. They go out and they know where these other caregivers are. They're able to speak on behalf of Operation Family Caregiver, and they're extending our, reach into the community. And so, that's another good way to reach out directly to caregivers because they know where these folks are. The other thing is, when I guess when you actually look at the partnership, and it seems simple, and how do you really set that up? And I kind of look at it as sort of like the art of making the deal, or how to build a relationship. And for me, it's really through having conversations and listening to what the other person has to say, similar to what you all do, when you're working with clients. And so, I always try to get the other organization or the person that I'm talking to go first, because then I can really listen to them and, key into, the clues that they're giving me as to, Operation Family Caregiver can help you with X, Y, or Z. We can help you meet your goals, and then I can also learn how they can meet, my goals that I want to do in terms of getting clients into Operation, Family Caregiver. And so that's how I started initially with, building that relationship. And it's the same thing when I talk one-on-one, with caregivers in the community, if it's at a conference or at a support group. I try to touch each of them individually to hear their story and link specifically how, we can support them with the challenges that they're facing. I think also, the key to developing cross-promotion and partnerships is you have to get out there. And, again, not knowing your organization and knowing how much time you have for outreach, that's really key, to look at your organization and is there, are there other people within your organization that can help support what you're trying to do? Do you have an education department that can support you in doing conferences focusing on TBI or PTSD to get that reach out there? Because, if you just look at, the coach, it's going to be really hard to do that. But, that's, again, what partners do you have within your own organization? Do you have that buy-in to, support you? And so I think, as I wrap up here, one of the things that, I'd like you think about and take away is, think about those 3 touch points that I talked about and, go back and talk with your supervisor or your managers and, identify, who it is in your community that, you need to reach. Who are the key players in your community? Who are the leaders in the veteran community? And who would you like to set up partnerships with and work with them so that they can, cross-promote and, have a formal referral process with you. So, I think one of these things in, developing the partnerships, too, that's crucial is once you've done that, it's similar to cultivating donors. So you always have to circle back. And so, when someone gives you a referral, you have to circle back and thank them for that referral and keep that partnership going and find out how it's working and make sure that, you refer to them as well. And when I actually, work with the organizations to try to set up more of a formal relationship, and my goal always is to set up a formal relationship where, there's forms where we refer to them and they refer to us, because it makes it more systematic and more of an assurance that it will happen. And one of the things that, I try to get, like with an example is with Psych Armor Institute. We have a MOU with Psych Armor. They're a national program, and they're a call center as well. And people are calling in, oftentimes never for themselves as a caregiver, but for their veteran. And so their staff are trained to, at the end of the call, they all say, so, well, what about you? And the person says, well, what do you mean, what about me? And getting into helping the caregiver think about themselves and getting them to agree to, oh, can I refer you to Operation Family Caregiver? And then our coaches have the chance to talk to them, tell them more about the program, and to try to, help them see what benefits they have of joining, Operation Family Caregiver. And, I think part of it, too, is, just being creative and thinking, when you look back at those touch points, the key really is how do you get that contact with that caregiver? And, for example, yesterday I was in Los Angeles, and I met this gentleman who actually runs all these salons in LA, but he has this program called Makeover to Makeover, and he does makeovers for veterans and their caregivers. So I thought, well, that's perfect. They're right there as sort of this captive audience that, I can connect with, I can go talk to about Operation Family Caregiver, and I'm sure we'll get clients from it. So it's really, exploring, those options. And so I guess, at this point, that was like a really, quick, run through of how I do the partnerships. And so I guess at this point I'll just open it up to questions.
And please just raise your hand and I'll unmute you if you have a question for Lorie. And I really appreciate that talk, Lorie, and I appreciate yours too, Tanya. So we'll take questions for either one, but I think the overarching thing that you need to really take away from this is that, this is not a one-way street. We know that Operation Family Caregiver is a great program and it's helping military caregivers around the country, but it's not the only thing these families are going to need throughout their caregiving journey. And so partnering at a national level with the other things that we know are good, that are vetted, such as coaching into care, the coaches need to know what's out there that the families they're working with can also tap into. And then, we're getting the benefit in return by we're picking up referrals into Operation Family Caregiver from these other national organizations. So I really appreciate everything that you were just saying, Lorie, and I know that our other sites are interested in how you've been able to do that so successfully. So anybody have any questions? Now's your chance. Well, I'm not seeing any hands go up. I'll give it another minute or two. I know that both of you, Tanya and Lorie, if anyone has a question afterwards, that you're fine with them contacting you by email afterwards with those questions.
Oh, definitely.
I just really think that it's important that, and sometimes you have to say something over and over and over again before it starts to sink in, but we are all are in this together, and families need a lot of support, and so I think that we need to make sure that we're helping families get into the things that they need, and what we have found by and large when we go around the country and do our national work and our national presentations is that all of these other groups, they feel the same way. So everybody wants to help us, and we need to be helping others because the hardest part about all of this is getting people into the services. There's some great stuff out there, but it's getting the people to realize that it's there, to understand that reaching out is a sign of strength, and so we can all help each other by helping continually having a steady drumbeat about what's out there and what's good and how we can help one another get folks into the services. Bobby is questioning. She said she wasn't able to get all the touch points down. Would it be possible to get something written down about Lorie's presentation? I'm sure that Lorie will be happy to send me a condensed version of the points that she was hitting so that I can include that in what I send out to everybody afterwards. You will have a link so that you can go back to listen. You can listen to this in its entirety as many times as you want to. You can see Tanya's slides, and Lorie, I'm going to just speak for you and say that I know that you'll get me some stuff that I can send out to everybody too, so that they'll have, it won't be slides, but they'll have those touch points written down, so they'll be able to refer back to that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll do that. And one of the things that, I think I failed to mention, but what we've done here is, the coaches are out in the community meeting people. I have other staff that are meeting people. And I think that, at a certain level, coaches can set up relationships and partnerships for referrals with, their colleagues and all of that. But I think one of the key points, too, is that the coaches, need to know, okay, if this is a higher level relationship, that who is it within your organization that, you can refer to set up that partnership and set up that formal MOU, and do you have that support within your organization and that system set up? So, I think that's going to be really key to go back to your organization and talk about setting up partnerships and who are the key players within your organization that are going to allow you to do that, and who's going to carry that ball at the higher level to set up more formal relationships at an organizational level.
Absolutely. These partnerships don't just happen by accident. There's a lot of work that goes into them, and everyone benefits if you're willing to put in that work. So you're exactly right, Lorie. I'm going to give everybody the opportunity one more time before I wrap up. I have a couple of things I want to go over. But are there any other questions at this point? Please type down at the bottom that you've got a question or raise your hand. Okay, I'm not seeing anything. Tanya did give you that address if you want to order the brochures, posters, business cards, etc. about coaching into care, so that you've got things that you can actually hand your families that you're working with, hand out to the caregivers. So you've got that. The other couple of things that I wanted to go over with you is the videos. Some of you have uploaded videos that you've taken with your cell phones of some of the people that have gone through the program. We've gotten, I think, 4 or 5 in at this point, and we've got some fantastic stuff. We know that's a great way to reach out to caregivers, is for them to see somebody else that's in the caregiving role talking about what they've gotten out of the program. So if you have not yet shot a little video with your phone of one of your caregivers, we're going to be doing this through the end of May, and then the ones that we select, and so far they've all been great, we're going to be editing these down, and these are going to be put together into something that will be shown at our summit in July. I just want to give you all the opportunity, encourage you. You don't have to be a pro at filming to do this. Just, get your caregiver there and shoot it. We'll do the editing on our end, but I do want you to all get us a video if you possibly can. I will be sending out the referral form that you can use for your families to refer them into coaching into care. I'll also be sending that out. There are a couple of other things. I won't take the time to go into them now, but make sure that you read the entire email, because I'm going to be hitting a lot of things and giving you a lot of other resources in that email that goes out. So we're almost at the end of our time, and I want to thank you again, Tanya. That was really, really great information. I know that the coaches have run into families that need this program, and so I know that you're going to be getting some referrals from our coaches. Lorie, as always, it's a pleasure to have you on, and I know that we had some supervisors on the line, so if, coaches and supervisors, if you want to reach out to Lorie personally after the call about any of the ideas and strategies that she came up with, I know that she's happy to share that with you. Our goal is to make sure we get everybody into the program that needs it. And I appreciate all of your time and energy towards that goal. So I think that's it for today. Thank you again, and I appreciate you being on the line with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thanks
and please,
a lot, everybody.
Anybody who has questions for myself, and I guess for Lorie too, do reach out to us.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.